Hello, I'm Susan Khalje. I'm lucky enough to spend a bit of time in Paris every year, and I always bring back vintage couture and haute couture trims and vintage buttons for my students. Well, this year I decided to expand upon the enterprise a little bit, and we're going to be offering them in the online store. Well, I thought I'd show you just what I have. Some beautiful temptations for you to enjoy. The buttons are glass. They're from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Some of them, interestingly, are marked made in Western Germany. Some are from Czechoslovakia, but they're just lovely. There are some sets. You can imagine this would be lovely on a jacket. These are fun. They're very thick. Almost looks like little caviar beads on the inside. So these smaller ones, of course, would be perfect on a cuff of a jacket. These on the matching pockets on the body of it. There's another set, sort of a twisted little knot here. I'm sure the missing one is in the bottom of my suitcase somewhere. I know I have a full set. So that's another nice set of sizes. But a lot of them could go both on a cuff and on a jacket. For instance, these, I think, are of a size, very pretty, kind of a rose tint to them. These could certainly go on a cuff and on the front of a jacket. They're a lovely size. And even these smaller ones, I think, could go in both places. Sometimes you can even make a little decorative use out of this kind of button along the front of a pocket. You can run 3 or 4 of them just beneath the trim. So all is not lost if this is something you love. This is a very pretty one, silver little crosshatch. What I like about all of these is they have so much dimension to them. There's a lovely, lovely depth to them. They're beautifully made and they're awfully pretty. This is nice. This looks like a stylized rose to me. And I love these little rhinestone ones. Very pretty. I think in quantity, these would be lovely. And these are adorable, these little ones. Again, you can see, I think, how you could almost form a decorative placement across a pocket, or rather, a pocket in the front of a jacket, and also perfect down a cuff where you have 5 or 6 of them marching down there. There's also one more set, very pretty. And you know, they're very decorative, but they could be used, I think, on a cuff as well as on the front of a jacket. So enough of the buttons. Let's look at the trims. I'll go through each of them just to show you, kind of group them according to color mostly. This is the black and white department. This is an awfully pretty one. It's got a nice bit of loft to it, a bit of softness. Really adds some nice texture, I think. Here's another black and white one. This is wool. And what's nice about this, it's interesting on the back as well. Yes, you do see the chain stitching a little bit, but I'm not so sure that's a bad thing, and you only see it if you're right on top of it. So that one has interesting possibilities. Here's the red department. This is lovely. It's very soft, but has a lot of texture and very pretty little gold X's, as you can see down the middle. This one I love, and it's got great colors in it. It almost looks like a dark, dark navy blue. And yes, there's the magenta, but there's also a little bit of this corally red sneaking in there, which really does pop the colors a lot. This one is lovely. It's a nice puffy little one with a bit of discreet gold in it. It's nice because it's got a pretty border on both sides. Ah, yes, the gold department here. I love this one. I think this is very beautiful. What I like about it is that it's got space in it, so you could certainly, the color of what's underneath it could be pulled through, and you could, if you wanted to, weave some kind of ribbon down the middle of that. There's enough openness in that one that you could. Ooh, this one is really elegant. When I was looking at this one the other day, I noticed that, it shows you how subtle these get and what care and attention is put into them. These little bars inside these little ovals are actually bronze looking. The rest of it is gold, kind of very antique looking gold, but a little bit of bronze inside there. Just gives it that little pop of color. This is very lovely. I love these. These, I suppose you'd call it a bronze. Very, very pretty and very, very soft. It almost looks like a sort of knitted thread underneath that these lovely smooth sequins are resting on top of. And then we have this little pair in both silver and gold. Pretty little stamped sequins on each of them. And then this is the white department. Oh, I should say the ivory department. This one is very, very pretty and could always be doubled like that if you wanted something a little wider. Ooh, you could even layer it. That's pretty. You could kind of stack it like that to get a little more volume out of it. This is very pretty. A little bit of a military reference. This one, ivory, very shiny ivory. This is an interesting one. Now this one is a little bit wider, a little more complicated, and you can see that there's some chain stitching just to hold everything in place because it is kind of wide, and you can imagine if that hadn't been there over time, it would not be so well behaved. So once that's removed, and you can see it just pulls right off, then the trim reveals itself. I think it could even be trimmed down, and you can see I've played with it. I've cut a little bit of that off. What happens is loops, obviously it's loops, but I think if it were steamed, the marks of the thread would come off, but I think it's kind of pretty if it's a little bit shorter. So there's that one. And then this one, which I happen to know was hand felted. So very, very striking. This one, you can see how sharp those colors were. This is how it started, and this is how it is now. Very, very lovely. Pretty brown, sort of gray in there. We're now in the navy blue department. Well, having said that, it's really even more of a purple. There's black, ivory, and this purple in here. And you can see it's got these little threads poking out. Delicate, but really very, very pretty. And here's a very, very classic one, this little navy blue one. And, well, we'll play around with these in a minute, but I think either the edge of the fabric could come there or a second trim could lie on top of that one. This one is great. Tremendous volume in this. Again, this is navy. It's a very inky kind of navy. And I think something could be threaded through that. But you can also see you get a little more bang for the buck because you can see the color of what's underneath showing through that one. And I love these raffia ones. So a very beautiful, kind of a figure 8 trim with raffia. Beautiful bit of texture on the inside. Very, very striking. And this was interesting. I don't know which is the right and which is the wrong side of this one. It's kind of a complicated braid. And you can see it's interesting on both sides. A little bit severe, but I think quite elegant on just the right fabric. And finally, we have these two. The same trim in a wider and narrow version. I like it because it's such a play on mixing two very disparate elements. We have actually jute, I think, a string, kind of a rough string, and here it is paired with gold and formed into a very pretty braid. So we have those. Well, let's think a little bit about the possibilities beyond what might be obvious. Now, this is the jacket that we did for the video, and you will recognize right away one of these trims. In fact, this wider one was the trim that I used here, and you can see that I paired it with a black, pretty ordinary little black corded trim, and I think paired together they're more effective than if either had been used alone. So that's a possibility, but let me just show you. If I had just used the gold, that's another look. I wonder how that pretty puffy navy would be. Also very, very striking. And with a trim like this, it can be placed right along the edge, and then you see the little scalloped edges, or it can be recessed a bit on the inside, and then you really do see its entire shape. What else would be nice? Wonder how this black and white would be. That would be really very beautiful, very striking on that. Let's see what else we have. This was the other jacket that we used in the video. And again, this is a figure 8 trim with a piece of velvet ribbon woven inside. But let's say we hadn't done that. I wonder what maybe, no, I think that gets lost. I think, no, I don't think black is good. I think the one we had really was pretty good. And that, interestingly, shows you a very unexpected pairing of colors. I think, you know, if you're in the store and you're looking for a trim to go for this, you look for pink, understandably, maybe ivory. But sometimes a totally unexpected color, in this case brown, really does go very nicely against, as a nice counterpoint against something. So I kind of stand by my choice on that one. Here is a work in progress. This is a coat that someday I will finish. And I've had quite a bit of trouble finding something perfect for it. I did have a gray trim at one point, but I actually sold that, so that was the end of that. But I did also have a red trim once, and I think that is very lovely with the black. I think, no, this one, no, that I think kind of gets, it's okay, but it gets lost a bit. I think I'm kind of liking that. Maybe that. I think it's too wide, but you can always stack trims on top of each other. If this were narrower, it might nestle in the middle of that nicely. I wonder what this would be like. It's a possibility. I don't know if that's the look I quite want. I think I'm liking the red. And let's just look at one more option. This is an old jacket of mine that I've had forever, and you can see it had, this was, I think it's crocheted. I don't think it's knitted. It has a crocheted trim, but let's say we wanted to put something else on that. Wonder if maybe that might be an interesting look. It would change the look of the jacket entirely. It really would. But that, I'd say that's a possibility. Maybe that is not bad. I think, no, I don't think I'd veer into the gold. I think that's a bit much of a departure. My friend the red might work. I'm very fond of this one, clearly. Well, you can see the possibilities are endless. So have fun, experiment, and I hope you enjoy looking at these trims as much as I did.